As I promised all of you, because you wanted to ask questions on budget and understand from me, and unlike most people on TV or on YouTube, I don't pretend to know everything and speak on everything. So I believe it is better to. Oh, 1 second. This phone on. I don't think I should speak on everything. On certain topics, you should bring people who have the expertise, who would have done a deep dive into the budget. Though we will keep it very simple because आप सब simple language चाहते हो and you want the basic common man को क्या क्या अच्छा लग रहा है, बुरा लग रहा है. You can ask your questions. I will not interrupt MRV's chain of thought. But I would put it to him after he's finished an answer. If you put in a question to me, only thing is, please either don't abuse the prime minister saying this is the worst budget possible, or don't oppose the opposition. If somebody asks a question that it's the best budget possible, we try to have a reasonable conversation as we always do. So welcome MRV to the channel once more. Thanks for coming. You've been here before on economy and once on temple takeover. That was a panel discussion we had, but you had primarily come on economy last time also. So thank you for coming once more. Always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, sir.
So MRV, in simple language, अगर मैं पहला सवाल ही पूछूं आपसे, what is your takeaway? Is it a good budget, average budget, or a bad budget? How do you see it?
I see it seems to be a reasonably good budget given the context. They got their directions right. Of course, like all budgets of the last 30 years, I've been following budgets since VP Singh's budgets of 1985. That was the time when I got into BCom, and I was a teenager at that point in time, and I got fascinated and hooked onto the budgets. The finance ministers are always entitled to 30-40% of exaggeration. Just like दूध वाला इतना पानी मिलाने के लिए उसका एक टोकन होता है, कोटा होता है. See, he can have 7 liters of doodh and 3 liters of water. So 3 liters of water is always there in any budget, so that you have to give away. But the 7 liters of milk is more or less good. I would say it's more or less on the right direction. But having said that, let me tell you, budget is one day. 364 days is the implementation of the budget. We forget budgets after day after tomorrow. This week we will be talking about budget, economy, growth, fiscal deficit, revenue deficit, सब बात करेंगे. But day after tomorrow, when actually the implementation has to happen, none of us are bothered till February 1st of 2022, when again we will start the same rigmarole. Point is, excellent ideas are there in the budget, some not so great ideas, but the devil is always in the delivery. And delivery, unfortunately, let me be very clear about it. People misunderstand me, and even if they misunderstand me, let me tell them bluntly that Narendra Modi has not been able to change delivery in terms of several issues. Of course, there have been several issues on which he has attempted, and some he has been successful, but a good number of it is fairly unsuccessful, and that's what worries me.
And but what do you think was there a big idea in the budget, a big direction you see the government is trying to focus? We'll come to the implementation and how politically possible that might be. But one of the things which appears to come out of the budget is that they will go for privatization.
Yes.
Well, every budget, I think, since last 10, 15 years has been saying we will go for privatization, irrespective of the government. But this time, some people believe that they appear to be more serious. Why do you think that that's the impression? And how do you see that going forward, the privatization?
I would say privatization, disinvestment, monetization of assets. All the three have been spoken of in varied terms. Though we don't see the budget numbers of the monetization part, though disinvestment part and the privatization part is aggregating to around 175,000 crores. So that's a good number. But having said that, let us understand that last year the finance minister promised that they would divest and bring an IPO in LIC. And till date, nothing has happened. So the classical example as to why you have brilliant ideas, but you're not able to implement it for a variety of reasons. This time you can say COVID, but the previous year also, we were talking about several disinvestment, and Air India disinvestment is one thing that the government has been talking about, but unable to do it for a variety of reasons. Now, the single agenda of the government, very rightly, is that it will get away from managing airline, banks, insurance companies, so on and so forth. It has to concentrate on education, infrastructure, health, which is the core of your governance. And this shift from trying to do every damn thing, and if you have to be a doctor, you have to do MBBS. If you have to be a lawyer, you have to do LLB. If you have to do chartered accountancy, you have to do ICAI. But if you want to manage any damn thing in this country, you have to do only one course, IAS. Now, I can't understand how a bloody IAS can manage an airline company and next be an agriculture secretary and third day he'll be a revenue secretary. So this lack of specialization, getting outside talents, is the bane of our lack of ability to manage PSUs. Banks have collapsed. The banking system in this country has collapsed. We have put in 4 lakh crores in the last 5 years. We have put in 4 lakh crores. Can you see the humongous number and this is basically because various people have looted banks, and in turn the poor are paying taxes, government is collecting taxes and then paying the banks. Now, I will give you to pinch you more, Ishkaran. Let me give you an example. Suppose you are buying a bread loaf for 100 rupees, you are paying 18 rupees, or let us say bread may be an extreme example. You are buying something, a cake for 100 rupees, you are paying 18 rupees as GST. Out of that GST, 1 rupee is to banks for recapitalization. 1 rupee is for the losses of Air India. 1 rupee is for the losses in BSNL. In other words, had they been profitable, your GST would have been 15 bucks. So nobody realizes this. So this government has now realized what it cannot do. The other part is what it can do, it has still not yet realized. क्या करना है उसको पता नहीं है, क्या नहीं करना है थोड़ा समझ में आ गया है. So they are divesting, they are monetizing, they are giving away, privatizing banks, they are doing away with insurance companies. This is the best thing that they can happen. If they achieve it, I am assuring you this can be a best game changer in the Indian economy.
Okay. MRV, there are a lot of questions coming on. Okay, middle class has been massively ignored. Middle class has been ignored, and I'll come to them. But I just wanted to put it in your mind. And secondly, a lot of people are asking questions on petrol and diesel prices. But I would come to that also. But I would firstly, and I will ask the questions because a lot of people are repeating the same. Different people are repeating the questions on petrol, diesel, and some of them on kerosene, LPG also. But I'll come to it later. First, I want to, from what you said, but do you think in the current context, where whether we like it or not, for the first time in 6 years, the opposition has managed to create political trouble for the government with the, I'm not getting into the farm bills, that's a completely different topic, but by political trouble, I mean they have managed to tell maybe some percentage of the population, Ambani, Adani, and privatization and selling off of the national asset, that narrative is still very low. In BJP voters, it's not there, but it has come into the being. In this environment, do you think the government will be able to push through with the implementation? What's the track record? Or do you think it is just on paper and it will back off?
Sure. There are multiple issues here. One thing I fully agree with you and concede. For the first time, opposition is not in parliament but is down in the streets. And they have been able to demonstrate very effectively there is an opposition that is alive and kicking. When all along Narendra Modi government was concentrating in the parliament. That is, you concentrate that the opposition will not come here or will come here and will tackle them here. And they come in this side and they ambush you. Actually, the government has been ambushed. That's the word. Now, why is it that the government is not able to counter? Now, I'm not seeing anybody within the BJP now talking about what are the schemes available in this budget, what are the benefits of divestment, because the party itself is not clear about divestment. And if I can even say that RSS, BMS, BKS are not yet convinced about this program. So the mouthpieces of the Sangh Parivar are not in consonance or readily agreeable to these massive direction changes that the government is trying to bring. Probably the party interlocutors have to talk to various people, and I'm sorry to say, party spokesperson on all channels are not able to effectively counter the fact that the Adani Ambani charge and try to counter it with facts and figures. So these are ideological issues. You have to understand this is a very tough task. But go back to the 90s. Pseudo secularism was explained by no less than L.K. Advani on Rath Yatra right through the length and breadth of the country. Now it's easy to explain corruption. आप चोर है, आप चोर नहीं है. This is very easy lingo. But to explain something, an ideological one like what Advani ji did, I think this government is lacking in expressing itself as to why this is good for the country, why privatization is good. Probably I can convince you and your viewers, but you give me 10,000 farmers and say that why privatization is good, I would not be able to do. But government, the party mechanism, unfortunately has become redundant, or I would say irrelevantly neutral for Narendra Modi. And I think he has to galvanize the party mechanism to counter this. This is a very serious problem that the party in power is facing today.
But do you think, that in this current situation, where, as you said, this is the first time, I'm not getting into the merits of opposition, but this is the first time, except maybe Rahul Gandhi had said an air suit boot ki sarkar, but there was no resonance on the ground. You did not see people coming on the ground. Even for Notebandi, you did not see people coming on the ground. And even, frankly, BJP also doesn't talk about Notebandi much now. You do not see anybody coming at celebrating it as a great achievement. Though at that time, it was pushed very hard. But if it had been, as I said, you don't see many people coming forward to celebrate it or even talk about it. But you did not see opposition on ground. You saw only opposition by the opposition in parliament or Twitter. This is the first time you are seeing opposition on the ground. In this environment, do you think this drive of privatization, they would go forward with it? What is your take? Or you think that it will just be put in a cold storage like CAA rules? The objection from the right of BJP comes. CAA rules came. I had Abhijit Iyer Mitra the other day. In his colorful language, he had a lot of problems that dates are okay, and today they have extended the date again of bringing the rules. Do you think it will be it will go into that direction, or do you think that this privatization, Air India, bank, monetization, privatization will happen?
I pointed out to one channel this morning that could be that the LIC union can go for a strike. Could be. I'm not suggesting they should. But they will oppose because there is a fear of the unknown. Two, that why should I allow, because there is a political handle and there are a lot of unions which are affiliated to the left, and they see that this is the best time to keep the government pinned down to something on which there is an ambivalence in the general public. So could be there can be something like that. That is why I say that the interlocutors of the government must begin ensuring that they begin dialogues with employees of various general insurances, banks, LIC. This cannot be left to the Prime Minister alone. And beyond the Prime Minister, whose Man Ki Baat cannot solve these issues, this has to be done by dialoguing with various people, use various people across, not only within the government. You use media personalities, you use NGOs, you use various other people, and then try to influence the thought process of various type of people and percolate the idea. See, the whole idea of liberalization came about because we had no choice. And likewise, privatization today is because we don't have a choice. Government is broke. If I give you the finances of the government, you'll be shocked. Government has a liability as of last year, somewhere around March, April, it crossed a figure of 100 lakh crores of liability. Now, that itself is an alarming number. But what is more alarming is the assets which back this liability is only 45 lakh crores. So 55 lakh crores is the liability of the government of India, on which there is no asset, on which you have to pay 7 or 8% interest. Now, you look at it, you have a liability of 1 crore rupees, but you have an asset of only 45 lakhs, you don't have an asset of 55 lakhs, do you think your company can be profitable any day? You will be in NCLT. But government cannot go to NCLT, so government has to do various jugglery. So the only thing the government can do is to sell off whatever assets is there, and obviously at some profit. Try to see anything if possible. If it has to do, it does it and close the liability. But unless it does it fast and quick, I think we are in a quicksand, and we may end up as a seriously broke country without government being having the necessary wherewithal to carry on these programs at a later stage. 2 or 3 years down the line, I see huge problems cropping up for the government unless it shows up.
I will now come to something which I found very interesting, and that relates to middle class also. मैं हिंदी में क्वेश्चन बोल देता हूँ because बहुत लोग हिंदी चाह रहे हैं, but I will put it in simple Hindi. The thing there, I had noticed a survey by C voter Yashwant Deshmukh, not somebody who's leftist or anything like that. I believe his polls would be neutral. He said that in his survey, usually the experts are saying it's a bad budget and the public says it's a good budget. As per him, it is the first time in 6 years with this government that the public is saying 49.7% are saying that future expenses, household expenses also, basic expenses will be difficult to manage. And he says this is the highest negative sentiment that he has encountered in 6 years of this government, that almost 50% of the people are saying that we will not be able to manage next year. And it's a steep rise from the last year and last year before that. So why do you think middle class is feeling so squeezed? And आपको लगता है बजट ने मिडिल क्लास को कुछ भी दिया है? क्योंकि यहाँ पे जो कमेंट आ रहे हैं वो, एंड बाय एंड लार्ज ये प्रो मोदी वोटर्स हैं मेरे चैनल पे, दे आर सेइंग कि कुछ नहीं दिया मिडिल क्लास को. So how do you take that?
Now, there are two explanations to it that I see. First, let us define the middle class so that we know what we are talking about. The government's definition of middle class is who earns less than 5 lakh rupees per annum. And unko to tax nahi hai. So they are saying that we have brought 99% of the population in this country out of the income tax net. Only 1.4 crore people out of 140 crore people are paying income tax. So 99% is out of the tax net. So that is one calculation. So the government also understands that it requires revenue. The problem is again going back to where the government is. The government requires revenue. And it has spent this year, you would be surprised that it has budgeted. I'm not defending the government, Ishkaran, so you shouldn't get it. Let us make our discussion constructive. So I'm not defending the government, I'm just putting out facts, because even the finance minister forgot to mention this, that the food subsidy was budgeted at 115,000 crores. And she finally ends up with spending 4,25,000 crores. So 3,10,000 crores over and above the budgeted figures she has spent on food subsidy. Now, where does this money come in? Food subsidy, you have actually purchased wheat and paddy from various farmers, of which 60-70% must be from Haryana and Punjab, and you have pumped this much money into the rural side and got gehu, chawal, and you have distributed free to 80 crore people. This is the Pradhan Mantri, all this Atmanirbhar Yojana, all those things that comes in, that I will give you free rice, free thing. So every thing goes in. So the only way on which the finance minister could have tackled this by raising indirect taxes. Now, raising indirect taxes for the entire population is not possible, because GST is linked to your state and the council. It is not possible. So the only way where the central government easily could have done it, and this is what they have done, though I don't approve of it, I'm only explaining what has happened, is that they have raised the fuel prices. And they have got enormous amount. The easiest thing to milk is to raise the price of petrol and diesel, and that is where you have budgeted. I will tell you what is. They have budgeted around 265,000 crores of indirect taxes, but they ended up with 335,000 crores of indirect taxes in a year where government was, the nation was shut for almost 6 months. How did they manage it? Humongous price rise in petrol and diesel, and that has. So the one way out for the government was you are showing a fiscal deficit of 9.5%. So if you show 10.5%, क्या उखड़ जाता? कुछ नहीं. But the government also feels that like somebody has to contribute to this. So let me take something from the people, raise the petrol and the diesel prices, and that's why they have brought it down to 9.5%. Now, whether this is correct or not, I'm only explaining. Personally, I don't agree. This is my answer to your question.
Okay, now because आपने पेट्रोल छेड़ा and पेट्रोल के बाद आग लगनी है, fire has to come, because almost 90% of the comments coming here are very strongly objecting to the already high petrol and diesel prices. But I will come to petrol diesel. Before that, I have to come to this, which is an objection.
I am personally. No, Ishkaran, I am also objecting to it. Let us be clear, I am also objecting to it, but I have also a role to play to understand and explain the numbers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So which I have. Yeah. So I'm only explaining what Nirmalaji's numbers are. So it's a rational for the government to do it. I don't say that the petrol prices should go beyond this levels. It's horrendous. It's a big pinch on the common man. It's a tax on the common man. I agree with all these things, but I'm only explaining what has happened.
No. So that is absolutely true. I'm not putting you in the dock. You are trying your just to explain what the government reasoning is. But I feel that that government reasoning, maybe that is why you are seeing a bit of resistance coming, because this government reasoning is meeting a pushback now at various fronts. So one of the things which is very problematic in India is when you said 5 lakh ke niche tax nahi hai, we have one of the highest rates of indirect taxation in the world. And let's be very real, we have no government security like European and countries have when you are old age and you have finished earning, etc. That net of safety is not there. So in that scenario, now we come to the petrol diesel. Do you think this government has any room to reduce the prices? Yeah, we are about to hit a century and pay 100 rupees.
See, it all depends on how the crude prices are going to behave, which I think will be benign, because the whole world, global economy is benign. So crude may fall. That's what the experts are believing. So the government has some headroom. It can reduce and it should reduce. But in case the government, again, all these are gambling on growth of around 11%. I don't know where from they got this 11%. And they have believed that they will grow at 11%, another 4% inflation. So all these things are calculated at a variety of numbers are around 10 to 11% of growth. If that doesn't happen,
you don't agree with that 11%?
Numbers are not going to.
Sorry to interrupt you. You don't believe in this 11%?
Pardon?
You do not believe this 11%?
I say that is a. No. I would love that number of 11% to happen, but that is a probable number. That is not a definitive number. You do not know whether horses will fly by September or not. It is quite possible that we may fall back with another economic slowdown or another lockdown. We don't know what will happen. So, yes, the government is optimistic that it will achieve. I think it is tough to achieve, given our resource constraints and our bandwidth of management, and given the track record of various state governments. Please understand, it is not only Narendra Modi who wants reforms. Narendra Modi only wants reforms. There are several state governments like Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, UP, all these are having various understanding of reforms. You can say that they are aligned with the Prime Minister. They say that you are not aligned with the Prime Minister. So there are a lot of issues on this. So my view is that if the best case scenario happens, then there is a case for marginal reduction in petrol prices. If the best case scenario doesn't pan out, then the petrol prices and diesel prices may further go up.
So you are not ruling out us scoring a century. I am laughing because there is nothing else we can do except laugh at it.
Yes.
There is nothing else.
So don't blame the messenger, only blame the fact as they come in.
Yeah, nobody is blaming the messenger, but do you think it will be psychologically a big blow, because BJP used to do very strong protests on the ground, in the streets, when petrol prices used to be increased. So I do not know how politically they will be able to sell 100 rupees petrol. It would be a very, very difficult thing to sell to the public. It's already difficult.
See, the price of petrol has been very sensitive, especially today when youngsters are all having some personal vehicle. And all of that are petrol driven, not diesel driven. And diesel petrol का दाम में बड़ा अंतर भी नहीं है आजकल.
अब नहीं रहा.
So you are, अब नहीं रहा. So my biggest problem is that it is not particularly the middle class, it is the youth of the country which is going to be badly hit. And two things that catches like a wildfire in any electoral run-up is petrol price and onion price. In the sense, these two things in a run-up to an election is always dangerous. And of course, this fuels inflation. And once inflation begins to go up beyond 3%, 4%, always governments have to manage several other things on which it's like you becoming a sugar patient. Till you are not a sugar patient, doctors can give you can tide over any crisis. But the moment you have sugar and BP, the doctors are at a loss to manage or first balance it. Before you balance, you lost 2-3 elections. And that's where I think the government is losing the Midas touch that they had. Midas touch that they had winning election after election. I think they have to come back to the basics and see that this is arrested forthwith.
No, you're right, because see, Bihar election also, till 4 months before the election, those of you who do not know the political thing is, till 4 months before the election, everybody thought Nitish and BJP are coming with a super bumper majority, 70%, 2/3, that sort of a majority. And they did not even, frankly speaking, get a very, 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 very narrow majority, that also with the Congress performing spectacularly badly. And the entire focus there of Mr. Tejasvi Yadav was on jobs, jobs, jobs. In the words of Trump, jobs, jobs, jobs. And they almost came to power against a very, very strong combination of caste when you have BJP and Nitish Kumar together. So that was fuel for youth. So youth is, and we are a very young country. So youth will have a problem, and that's a problem coming. But I will add one more question to you. Bank privatization. A lot of people here have questions on bank privatization, which has been said would be done. Do you think that is inevitable and should be done, or do you think that's something which doesn't suit our economy? What's your view on that? And what's then after that the government's rationale on that? Because that is taking a lot of questions are coming on that.
Okay, I have already told you. By default, my default position is government should not manage banks because it cannot manage banks. Simple. 4 lakh crores have been pumped into these banks in the last 5 years, and even now there is around 10 to 15 lakh crores of NPAs. Okay, that is the level of NPAs today. And why is it? Because government is unable to manage banks, and not only government. Today, RBI has come to a stage where it is unable to regulate banks. It is taking over banks. It is sitting in the boards. It is getting 240 odd returns on a daily basis, weekly basis, fortnightly basis, monthly basis, quarterly basis, half-yearly basis, yearly basis. But yet RBI does not know that a kingfisher का एक कबूतर है ना, kingfisher bird को माल्या ने 800 करोड़ पे गिरवी रख के चला गया. एक फोटोग्राफ को उसने 800 करोड़ पे, सबको पता है लेकिन आरबीआई को पता नहीं है. So you can understand. So what type of governance that we are having in this country in terms of public sector banks. So Air India, all this is not.
But I'm sorry, I'll interrupt you here, because we very easily blame public sector. What happened to Yes Bank? Private, ICICI, private. So, we cannot have that case that they are in jail.
Okay. The answer to that is very simple. That every bank, whether it is public sector or private sector, does not have the managerial bandwidth. But more so in case of public sector, because you are putting your money. In S Bank, bank had to be bailed out because we did not want to swallow the failure. Government did not allow the failure. In other words, S Bank too was managed by the government indirectly through RBI. S Bank may be a private bank, but you mean to say in 2020 alone, the scam exploded. Nobody knew about it. What was RBI doing? What was the auditors doing? What was the central government doing with all its intelligence? You mean to say there was no intelligence in the market about S Bank being run or mismanaged?
But then we see, we will always have a regulating bank. That is not going to go away. No country will have that going away.
This will change. That is why I'm saying privatization, putting more accountability, putting people on the stock markets to own the shares, electing the, and when you do it, you still, even today, you can't have more than 5% or 10%. Even you may have 15% or 20% of the bank shares, but you can't exercise it beyond 5% or 10%. I'm not very sure about the number. So all these things must be liberalized. Let people have it and let people punish. And also you should punish banks which are failing.
But MRV, with ICICI Bank, and we know what happened in ICICI Bank, we know what happened in Yes Bank. In Indian context, and we have seen how many of these chit fund companies, which are not bank exactly, but that's a path to
broad categorization is the banking financial institution.
I'm saying very broadly. We are seeing PMC Bank. We are seeing this happening with so many privatization bank, and in India even today, with historically low fixed deposit rates, people who are out of the job market still have FDs. I talked to so many people that FD is basically negative return now if you put in inflation. But anybody above 60 still is in FD because they can't put risking their money anyplace else. So in Indian situation where we have not always had a very entrepreneur look or a stock market look, that everything is in stock market, 401ks, etc. It's not easy to just go with private banks also, which
that's why I said this is the first step. This is not a panacea for all your ills. For one pill you cannot cure all your problems. Let us be clear. But this is the first. Directionally, this is the best thing to happen, because you have tried for 70 years managing banks, you could not. And this is the time that you will have to move away, just like liberalization happened, where you said you will do everything yourself, and then you said, no, I can't manage every aspect of the economy. Now I can't run every aspect of the economy. Now you come to a conclusion that you cannot manage every single sector of the economy. In fact, that is why today, I don't know whether you have read it in the papers, Dr. Swamy has filed a PIL in the Supreme Court asking for a CBI probe into the functioning of RBI. Now that's the way to begin, bring in accountability of RBI, because slowly it will percolate. And believe me, every advanced country has some sort of a oversight body on all the regulators. In this country, we have regulators as once you have had SEBI, you said SEBI, and even the judiciary thinks that SEBI knows everything, and SEBI is Allah, Buddha, Christ all rolled into one. It is not. SEBI has its own drawbacks, IRDA has its own drawbacks, RBI has its own drawbacks. It's of the same material of you and me in the society. So you can't have poorly performing banks and great regulators. There's a poor performing regulator and still poorer performing bank. So we have to cleanse the system, and the system cannot be cleansed only through putting one joint secretary and saying that he will lose money. So we can't be running the same system. Probably, I may be wrong. I must concede, because one cannot say that for definitive that privatization will yield results. But if past is any indication and a track record, we have failed miserably. There's no harm trying an alternative, and let us go with a fair chance. Let us try to see how to make things accountable.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you. And as if you are moving away from, and India has done well since privatization started. India has done very well since we had liberalization. And we have had, as you said, a past experience of privatization being generally for the better. Maybe not always, but it's generally been for the...
The golden rule in economics is that what gravity is to physics, competition is to economics. And 800 channels are coming. I grew up watching Doordarshan till the age of 20. And after which I have seen 800 channels in various languages, various types exploding. And today, all these are surviving and giving you better entertainment, better quality programs. You have a choice of switching off, or you can switch on to various channels,
Hmm. Hmm.
and all of them are privately owned, excepting Doordarshan.
And what only channels? We have YouTube conversations where you and me, we go on TV debates
This is
so
technology.
often,
No,
and we
I'm saying technology. This is
technology.
so we have to move also with times,
Yeah, yeah,
and
absolutely.
and probably we have to prepare ourselves for a digital currency wherein we don't see physical currency. All of us have only numbers to translate. I have to give you 1 crore of rupees. I transfer through a Paytm.
You actually have to give me 1 crore rupees. I'll be very happy. Thank you.
Yeah, I have to give you, no problem. I'll give it to you, but you remember that I'll charge you equal amount for sitting on your program.
But and you're right. So basically, we have to. I also agree with that. We have to. But I'm not. See, frankly, with time, I used to be a full votary of privatization in every sector. As Reagan said, I think the government has no business to be in business. But in these financial sectors, private is also in India, because we don't have enough punishments, we don't have enough laws, we don't have enough.
Ishkaran, let me tell you very bluntly. It is the lack of any fear about any enforcement agencies that is compelling people to act in an errant way.
Yes.
That's not just like Comrade Dent said. I don't mind whether the cat is black or white as long as catches the mice.
Hmm.
So, but the problem is today we are not able to produce a system that is bringing in accountability. For every public sector bank failure, we have a private sector bank, and for every let us take Jet Airways. For the failure of Air India, you can always quote the counter that Jet Airways क्या उखाड़ लिया उसने? It was
Kingfisher.
huh?
Kingfisher also.
Brand. By 2008, 2009, it was a terrific brand. And when the promoter starts looting the company from within, the company collapsed within no time. By 2013-14, it was everybody knew it was falling, and by 2018, it fell. Now, while we blame Air India, we can't blame Jet Airways. We have to. But the only thing we have to ensure is that Air India's failure is directly taxpayers' money. Jet Airways is probably banks' money. And if we privatize banks and bring in accountability, these type of things will not happen. That's only a hope, and keep your fingers crossed. That's no guarantee. Let us be very clear. That's no guarantee.
And we have to keep fine tuning as we go ahead, because we may end up into a situation like US, which had to basically bring out all the banks by taxpayers' money. We were again back to the same situation where you had to do that, and there is no much. Anyways, towards the end, MRV, I would ask you, middle class, you have skillfully not said what is middle class going to benefit by the budget, or do you want to speak? Because a lot of people are asking, हमें क्या मिल रहा है? Because
middle class को मोदी जी का भाषण मिल रहा है. You should be very happy. So that's all. We have to be happy with the thing that we are paying and through our noses to sustain this government. As simple as that.
So, okay, you don't hold out. So as I said, anyways, in India, middle class is
and the government believes that the middle class, come what may, will vote for it. And that is ensuring that the government has taken the middle class for granted and believes that they will vote. So this is one class that cannot go to the other side, come what may. So government has to take care of the highest class to see that the growth numbers, top line numbers are all shored up. As far as the bottom half of, or the bottom of the pyramid is concerned, it has to ensure that they are pampered and taken care of, because that is where the votes are going to come in large numbers. So otherwise, the other side will pick up the votes. They are the natural vote bank of the other side. So the government feels that anyhow its own vote bank is condemned, because for them, what is required is only slogans. For them, what is required is showing that 2024 Ram Mandir will be there. For them, income tax is basically a one-day phenomenon. Let them bite their tongue and hold on for 24 hours. Sab bhul jayenge. And anyhow, day after tomorrow, the cricket match starts, so sab bhul jayenge.
So you don't hold out much hope for middle class. But
I don't see that. I have. This is not my position. This last 3-4 years, I've been very consistent, vocal about the fact that middle class is never in the radar of this government.
True.
Not
Because
today. Not that I've dug your question skillfully or otherwise, Ishkaran, but the fact remains that's the truth of the matter.
Yep, true. And all of you asking me, that is MRV's view, and he's very consistent. I remember last time he came, he said this, and he's rating the budget as a good budget because of all the various factors. But on middle class, you have to effectively fend for yourself, and you have to pay your petrol. You have to
Pay
pay
your
your
taxes, pay your taxes, pay your petrol, pay honestly your GST, and if you run your businesses, you have to file hundreds of forms. And what I call as I have coined a new term for doing business in India, what I call as impossibility of doing business in India, IDBI. So this is going up by the day. So in the sense, you file this form, you file that form, you get it audited here, get it cross-checked there. And this is not merely limited to central government or central laws. State governments also are looking at the common man with suspicion, common businessman, entrepreneur with suspicion. That's the trait now. The government doesn't believe its own citizenry, wants to cross-check a million times before giving you a relief or some sort of thing. So that is what is come to stay. So if you are going to run your shop, a small shop or a small business here or a small business there, you are basically looked at some sort of character which has to be doubted by the government of India. When I say government, I mean state and the government, the central.
So you think in this it is politics neutral for every political party? Middle class is effective.
That's because the bureaucracy thinks that every citizen is basically somebody who is out to revolt against the government of India. And they are the descendants of the British Raj, and they are to defend the Raj. And they don't believe it is British Raj, but they believe it is the Raj that has to be defended. So every Indian, like the Britisher used to view that every Indian is seditious, every Indian is out to break law, every Indian is out to do some sort of things to make money. So, and unless they broke the law, they wouldn't make money. So Indians, by nature, the state believes that if you are prosperous, you have broken some law. So if you have broken some law, else you couldn't be prosperous. So there is a reflex action to prosperity. It's deeply embedded into our psyche that if Ishkaran is doing well, the immediate gossip is that Ishkaran to kuch kar raha hoga. And so the entire machinery state, the whole thing is that we have to go after him. So put 2 more curbs on him, ask him to file 2 more forms, if possible fortnightly, daily, weekly, whatever it is, so that you chain him to only filling up forms.
I remember I asked one very senior official in the finance ministry about taxes, middle class. He said, "ये लोग अगर तुम 100 रुपए की कॉफी पीते हो तो 110 रुपए की भी पी सकते हो." So that's the attitude. If you can have a 100 rupee cup of coffee, you can have 110. If you can have 110, you can have 120 rupees coffee. We have to, as you said very, I would say beautifully, people below the middle class are huge vote bank. Every government has to provide them with basic facility, and they should. And the corporates you need for the top line numbers. Middle class is.
And anyway, you are condemned to vote for them. Where will you go? You can't go and vote Rahul. You have burnt all your bridges, so you are condemned to vote for them.
Perfect. So all of you wanted middle class ka answer. I also could not find anything much, but MRV had to speak. So I hope you got your answer, even though you already knew the answer. It is not something you did not already know. So don't blame the messenger. You already knew. But he rates the budget as a above average budget for India as a whole. Middle class ho, apna petrol dalwao aur aage chalo ya cycling karo.
But I would also say that a budget should not be rated on petrol prices. Budget should not be rated about taxes. There's a much larger thing to the budget. Of course, looked at it from my personal angle, I would always love petrol to be down, tax exemption to be more, and other things. Budgets have to be viewed from a far holistic picture, what it happens to the nation. You can't be holding on a nitpick on a particular point. That's the message. But that matters at an individual level.
Thank you, Marvi. Thank you so much for doing this and taking out time. Always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.